I can only assume that if you clicked on this video, you are, like me, Wes Anderson aesthetic trash. Too old to be a visco girl and not edgy enough to be an art ho girl. But welcome, here we are. And don't feel called out because this is not form time registration, or as the Americans call it, a roll call. I decided to make Agatha's dress from the Grand Budapest Hotel because Agatha is arguably the most important character in the entire film. I mean, if we didn't have Agatha, then we wouldn't actually have the storyline, because Zero wouldn't have kept the hotel in loving memory of her. Sorry, spoilers. Also, it's a hella cute little Peter Pan collared little bow ensemble, so there's that too. And yeah, this makeup look is nothing to do with it. I just wanted to look like a little Mendels box. So please carry on watching if you would like to know how to make this Agatha dress, a Mendels box, or even how to learn to ride a bike. What? Oh no, sorry, we don't provide that content on this channel. Got the wrong end of the stick there. So I guess we'll start sewing then. To make this dress you will need some pale blue cotton. Mine was actually advertised as scrubs material, but contrary to what TLC sang in '92, this scrub was in fact very fly. You'll also want some peachy pink cotton to make bias binding, a Peter Pan collared dress pattern and a zip. After gathering stock, lay your Wes Anderson book, down as a weight and cut around your pattern pieces. Agatha's dress in the film is her Mendel's work uniform, so I wanted to lengthen the hem length on my dress to match the length of hers. To do this, I just drew out a line 5 cm from the hem and then cut the skirt pieces out at this point. This costume also requires some interfacing for the collared sections. Think of interfacing as the equivalent of protein powder for your collar. It will make it kind of hench and full of body. Speaking of body, why in this scene is he flexing his pecs so aggressively? After cutting out the pattern, you'll need to transfer the pattern markings and most importantly the darts. In order to hit that bullseye, I like to use the pattern as a guide, pushing my pin through the dart points, then lifting up the paper, marking a pen on both sides. Then you can use a ruler to draw the lines in exactly. Now flip the fabric together so that the lines you've just drawn out can be aligned and pinned into a dart shape. Once you've pinned the lines exactly, you can begin pinning at right angles too. After that, I would recommend sewing the darts down. I mean, unless you enjoy having the feeling of pins and needles, in which case, you do you, hun. Once you have put in all of the darts, the bodice back and front should look a little something like this. And then to turn these lifeless cutouts into vaguely wearable garments, sew the shoulder and side seams of the back and front bodice together. If you want a more couture look, you can also overlock and iron the seams open if you so please. And now we are ready to move on to that super cute Peter Pan collar. I mean, I'm not really too sure why it's called that, honestly. Have you ever seen Peter Pan wear a collar? I think not. In preparation for the collar, you'll need to cut out some bias binding from that peach pink fabric. Lay it diagonally and cut it in straight strips, then you'll need to manipulate it, just as you've manipulated every boyfriend you've ever had, into this kind of shape. Next, prepare the back facing of your collar by adding on the interfacing. I do this by soaking a muslin cloth. This one's from Lizelle now. That's fancy. And then squeezing it out till most of the water is out of it. Then lay the cloth on top of the interfacing and hold the iron down on it for 10 seconds at a time until it's glued itself on. And then after that, overlock the side edges, sew them together, and then overlock the long curved edges too. I'm sorry, I'm just drinking my porn star martini. Right, so for this next clip, I want you to guess what on earth I'm talking about. Pause this vid, comment it, and then come back to find out the answer. Well, yeah, but I think it should have been washed because their dead bodies were all over it. I am actually deceased, very fitting for this convo, huh? But I was actually talking about my granddad's throws on his sofa. So his dog Pip had fleas, and then when she had the flea treatment, the dead flea bodies just kind of like died and their carcasses were left on various sofa throws. Sorry, I know that's pretty mank, but taking it out of context, that convo is so bloody funny. Anyways, what I'm doing here is pinning and then sewing my front collar pieces right sides together. Nanny! Okay, so I've just stitched 1 centimetre round the edge of this collar, and I did that because I'm adding on the bias binding, which I made earlier, onto the edge. But what you would normally do to make this collar is you would construct it by sewing the right sides together, then you would flip it outside, and then you would iron it. But because I'm using bias tape, that centimetre seam allowance which would have been made when I flipped it outside, flipped it inside out rather, is not there anymore. So I have to cut this off and then put the bias over the edge. And that is exactly what I did. But I needed some of that Peter Pan Disney magic for this one, as getting the bias to lay exactly snugly around a curved collar ain't no run in the wheat fields, let me tell you. Oh yeah, and then pizza happened. I mean, everyone's got to have a Domino's break. So while I'm doing this kind of boring stuff, I thought I would share two wacky facts about the Grand Budapest Hotel. Number one, did you know that the main character, Monsieur Gustave, is played by Ralph Fiennes? Sorry, I mean, not all facts can be that wacky. Fact number two is that my grandma is obsessed with Ralph Fiennes. In fact, I'm going to ring my granddad right now and see what he has to say on the matter. Hi Grandad. I'm just gonna put you on speaker. So how obsessed would you say Grandma is with Ralph Fiennes?
Oh, she prefers him to me. She loves him in that film.
What, Harry Potter?
No, Schindler's List.
Oh my god. Bit dark. Isn't he cute? My grandma's less cute. I mean, whose favourite film is Schindler's List?
You don't like it?
It's not that I don't like it. I am physically repulsed.
After finishing your pizza, you can sit down to watch some selling sunset with some relaxing hand stitching. You'll need to baste on the bias binding to the collar so that when stitching it properly, it doesn't slip around. When stitching, I defo recommend using an edge fitter so that you can get really close to the edge of the binding. Following on from that, you can unpick the basting stitches and then stitch 1 centimetre in from the raw edges of the collar so that it doesn't get stretched around. Sorry, I don't know what's happening to my voice. Once you've done that, toss it down somewhere because you're sick of doing all the fiddly binding on it, and in the meantime move on to the skirt pieces. Firstly pin and then stitch together the front piece to the 2 back pieces, but remember not to stitch together the centre back because that's where you're not at all matching the colour of your fabric white zip will go. Then sew 2 parallel lines along the top of your skirt piece to make gathers. Make sure to use a long stitch length and not back stitch at the end. Once you've done that, balance the precarious ensemble on your lap, proceeding to get very mixed up with all the loose threads and having a mini breakdown. Scenes not shown on camera for patient confidentiality purposes. Okay, so now I'm going to show you something like utterly life-altering, altering the clean way too. So see here, instead of tying those loose gather threads into a knot, which will make the process later of editing the amount of gathers impossible, instead put a pin in and then wrap the threads around it in a figure of 8. Then you can undo it if you have the wrong amount of gathers. Genius, right? Then just sew a straight stitch in the middle of those 2 lines to secure the gathers in place. Oh my god! Look at it! Now I just have to take out those bottom gathering stitches, like the basting line. Yeah, what she said. And now has come to that time of year again. No, not Christmas, although that is coming up soon, and oh my gosh, I am so excited to put up my decorations. But no, we are back to the collar. So first you'll want to take out all of your angle on it and cut little triangles out of it, and then you'll want to sew it to your bodice neckline, as that's where collars normally go, unless you're a dog, in which case you wouldn't have a bodice neckline to sew your collar onto, or maybe you're one of those really fashionable dogs that have clothes. Who am I to judge? After that, you need to stitch from the back facing of the collar and then kind of flip it and bop it and twist it and do da. Anyway, does any 90s babies remember that game, the Bop It game? Did that game just bring back all of your repressed childhood memories? Lol, me too. Anyway, so then you flip it around and hand sew down the innards. Then you can pour yourself a beveragino because you have completed the most tricky bit, the collar. And now we move on to the sleeves. After overlocking the armpity bit, you'll need to sew 2 gathering stitches to the head of the sleeve and then pull up the gathers slightly. This is so that your sleeve has that more, like a 3D look. Wow, I'm not explaining that well, am I? Ah yes, that well-known sleeve slogan, get the 3D look. Then sew the sleeves into the bodice and you should be left with something like this. Yeah, I left those cereal boxes in deliberately to make you hungry. See, now you want cereal, don't you? Next, using some more of the pink bias, finish off the sleeves. Gosh, that sounds a bit dramatic, doesn't it? Finish her off, Fred. Like, I can imagine Vanilla from Killing Eve saying that. But, oh my gosh, how cool would it be to sew some of the outfits from Killing Eve? That is a brilliant idea, but I'm going to think about that another time. So for the moment we have to overlock the centre back seams and then insert the invisible zip. And this is where the invisible zip got stuck. Can't do it. Can't do it. Evidently I got over this problem and carried on to finish up the hem, which was done with, guess what? Peach pink bias binding. Then the last thing to do for the dress was to sew a thin strip of pink fabric for Agatha's bow, which goes round the collar. And then to make the little Mendels boxes. So I decided that to be cheaper, I wasn't going to buy pre-made pink card, so instead I got some A3 card and then painted it in acrylic paint. First goes in the white, or not. This clip makes me laugh so much because I was really trying hard to be all artsy with it and then it just flops. So now we try a different white and mix it in with the red to make pink. And paint, paint, paint. And dry, dry, dry with the hairdryer. To construct the box itself, you basically just make a cube, the layout for which I copied from Pinterest. But if people are actually thinking of making this and would like a layout for the boxes, I can definitely make something and post it on my Insta perhaps. Let me know. To make the Mendels logo, I found a print on Pinterest yet again, and if you do not have a printer, you can trace directly from your ePad. Very easy stuff, very stable. Then just draw the lines around the edges and trace on the logo in the centre of each square. After that, cut around the edges and glue the side flaps so that it forms an authentic cube-like appearance. Get the 3D look, part 2. Then you just repeat all of those steps to make 6 cubes, 2 of each size so that you have 6 in total, which can be towered upon each other. Quick maths there.
-1, that's freaking maths.
I have been making Mendels boxes at 2 hours per box for 4 days now. So I've just finished colouring in all of my Mendels boxes and I go to put the pencil back, and this was the length of these ones before I started. So I have done that much colouring over the past 4 days that it's gone that short. And for the finishing touch, you need to make the blue ribbon that goes around the Mendels boxes. In the film, the ribbon is actually slightly darker than mine, but I had fabric left over from the dress and I'm cheap, so... Then once you've made the boxes, you can prepare for your Grand Budapest Hotel inspired photo shoot. So I'm just about to go to the shops to get some sort of like pastel sort of pastries, macaroons if they have any, some cute pastries to go into the Mendels boxes. So stay tuned because we're going to go to Tesco.
Oh my
Liam
gosh,
is
what happened to
suggesting that I
Koyan?
use this in my video.
It's not very fascinating.
We got some Mr. Kipling French fancies and also, what are they called? Eclairs, like jam eclairs. But that's in the fridge because it has cream in it. So I'm going to eat those tomorrow and film with them as well, obviously. But I'm definitely going to eat them afterwards. Well, that certainly was not a lie. And then of course you can take some Wes inspired photos, costumes, boxes and pastries complete. Work it, Agatha. It's kind of funny that the only accent that I cannot do is an Irish one. And now finally we've got some close-ups of the dress itself. Thank you so much for watching. It means a lot if you watched until the end and you've got this far. And maybe stay tuned because, you know, maybe I'll make another Wes Anderson look. Au revoir, till next time. Yeah, so this is what happened. Look at my hat!